everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Mooney's Mini Bites. I'm your host, Kosi, and I'm joined always by Wani B. And dude, we just could not leave the biggest show on earth alone because we're going to run it back again with Severance, Mooney's Mini Bites.
No,
Juan, is,
absolutely,
is, is that correct?
absolutely, Kosi. Listen, this is biggest show on television, in my opinion, the best show on television, and I really feel like we have to do it justice by giving a quick review of each week's episode. So, without further
Yeah,
ado,
man. And
again, Mooney's mini bites format. Quick, just jump into the episode. No thrills, no frills. So let's get started, Kosi.
yeah, man.
All right, so going over first a recap of last week's episode. It was called "Who Is Alive?" Episode 3 of Severance season 2. Now, who
Biggest question going right now.
it actually goes into specifically why that's an important question.
Yeah.
We actually opened the episode kind of strangely, where Audi Mark is kind of sprinting to Lumen, kind of rushing to get to the door, looking at his watch closely, seems to be timing something, right?
Yeah, he's trying to keep track of something. I've noticed, upon like my rewatches, his watches change. I don't know if you realize. Well, it's very clear, but like it's a different kind of like because he has like he had an analog watch,
Yes,
whatever it was, and like that like really simple one, and like now it's like kind of showing the progression of where he's at. But no, it's a different kind of thing he's got on his wrist now.
yes. Actually, they have their watches on the outside, and then when they go to their lockers to
Right,
go
right, right.
downstairs, they switch to a
Yeah, they switch it.
specific
Yeah.
watch, I guess approved by Lumen, right? So they don't. I'm guessing so they don't take, like messages in their watch or
Mhm.
something along those lines, right?
That makes so much sense, actually. Yeah, it's like a way to just keep control over it. Yeah, keep
Right.
keep control over
But
the.
actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Kosi, because it does actually a common motif in the show. We see a ton of clocks, watches. There's a clock over the security guard, a digital guard that's often
Mhm,
very visibly portrayed. There's the watches on the hands. There's
mhm.
the clocks, both when they come out of the elevator, there's an immediate watch, or I mean, clock, clock on the wall. Same in their office.
Yeah,
We keep seeing it a lot.
there's a
There's actually been
there's a definite. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
there's been a few times where they've played with things, kind of played with the sensation of time. It seems like, they want you to focus, on the specifically that, okay, they showed up at 9:02, they showed up at 9:05. They keep bringing up one of those things that could easily be used to pull off a twist, like some lost time, something that's hard to notice, but you notice if you see on the watch. Interesting,
Right.
interesting visual and idea that the show keeps playing with and getting us to focus on. So, anyways,
Yeah, just to piggyback off. I
go
think
ahead.
to piggyback off what you said, like it does have a kind of obsession with time, not just like just in terms of the motifs, but then the whole idea of the show, like or just the one mechanic of the show where you kind of lose that track of time. You're not sure when you go from Innie to Audi, what's happened in between them. So again, I think the show wants for me. I think the show wants me as a viewer to be cognizant of like time. What time is it? Where are we at? I think it even goes into when they ask the innies or natties, like the questioning, like, hey, like what state are you in? Like, what date is it? Like this whole obsession with time and like prolonging it, even, which again they're like kind of firing that at you is what I definitely caught on to early on with this.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it's definitely something they want you to focus on. Anyways, moving through the plot, at this point, Mark goes down, gets to work, right? We don't really
Mhm.
know why he kind of rushed in, but now we're back to any Mark, right, at the severed floor. So any Mark, his goal still is to try to find out what happened to his Audi's wife, right? He obviously only
Right. No, no.
briefly knows her as Miss Casey, doesn't have, still considers her a friend and one of the innies, right? Would want to rescue her for that reason alone, but does not have obviously the love and attachment Audi Mark has for his wife.
Right. I think he's like making like some wanted signs, whatever. Like she's missing, whatever,
Yes,
like to
yes, exactly.
bring
He
awareness.
puts prints little posters, basically. Prints little
Yeah,
posters with her face on it, and basically asks his buddies there to go help him, right? Spread it around. He asked Bert to go to the O&D office back where his friends were. Not Bert, sorry, Irv, to go where,
Irver.
yeah,
Yeah,
where Christopher Walken used to work with all his other O&D optics and design, I think it's called O&D friends.
yeah.
So Irving goes and he's kind of nervous about going there, but he decides to go anyway. Basically, he's still kind of traumatized about Bert leaving. He hasn't been back since there, obviously. In his mind, Bert
Hey, Juan, I have a
died.
question.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mark's making all these wanted signs and obviously bringing like kind of a definitely will attract attention from the people up top. Isn't this like not a like smart play? Like, shouldn't he just shouldn't he do, like conduct this investigation of what happened to her like on the low? Like I kind of found that kind of weird. Like, why is he like
You
just
know, that's
brazenly
actually
just
an
putting this out?
interesting part of the show. They supposedly told them, and they kind of briefly mention it. They supposedly told them there's no longer cameras or microphones. They don't have barriers on the doors or everything. Nobody seems to be watching.
Uh,
So, I mean, they're just brazen, right? They're sitting there trying to play somewhat nice, maybe somewhat getting to work, but they're a lot more brazen than they were before. And I think Lumen is still trying to figure out how to get a handle and get Mark in particular to work, right?
mm, okay, okay,
So at this point, they spread out the posters, and Irving finally decides to go to optics and design. There he meets, I think her name is Felicia in the show, older black lady. Not sure what her actress's name is, but they basically
oh, yeah,
reminisce.
she was great,
Yeah,
man.
they basically reminisce about Bert, right? The times they shared together. One other thing
Mm.
I didn't mention is that at this point, if we recall at the end of season one, Irving, he had seen that his Audi had painting a bunch of paintings with, basically a dark black corridor leading to a elevator with a little red
Yeah, the
arrow.
hell, the
It's
not the hell, like hell elevator.
yeah, the elevator. That's actually a great phrase for it.
Yeah,
It is, I think, meant to
yeah.
symbolize hell. If the severed
That's definitely what I
Yeah,
thought.
if
Yeah.
the regular severed floor is meant to kind of symbolize purgatory, then that floor seems to be kind of, the lower base, the lower levels of hell, so to speak. It's definitely the visually
Hey,
that's kind of what it seems to imply. Go ahead.
in terms of lower levels, then do you think because like not do you think that there are other floors in Lumen
No, I mean,
that like we haven't seen
there's
because of
obviously
the
the
elevator way I guess we're
there's
assuming.
obviously the regular floors where the normal employees work, right? But we haven't seen anything about those, and I
Right.
don't think they're too interesting, just regular corporate offices. The more
Right. Okay.
interesting thing, we have seen Miss Casey towards the end of season one get sent down this exact corridor that Irving pictures and just draws over and over. Audi Irving.
Mm.
Basically, they call it, I think, the training floor. Um,
Painful. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
something like that in season one, and they're trying to find out that's where they think maybe Miss Casey is. We know the audience knows that that is what Miss Casey is, but they, you
Mm.
know, potentially think that's where she might be. So Irving had kind of drawn a sketch to show his innie coworkers, and he takes that sketchbook with him because he had also drawn sketches of Bert. Obviously, he's really in love with Bert. He misses Bert. He's really good at sketching
Yeah.
too. So he
Yeah.
does these really pretty sketches of Bert, and he shows Felicia. I can't remember if it was Felicia or Alicia, but the black lady that was friends with Bert. So they're reminiscing and stuff, and she starts flipping through, and it turns out she recognizes that hall. She recognizes that dark hall. She calls it the exports hall, and she says they used.
Yeah. That was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, she says they used to take their. I guess we saw in season one they made little knickknacks or little flashcards or obviously drawings and stuff. We're not really sure what it's all for, right? But we
Yeah.
saw.
Lumen makes like a lot of stuff. They have their hands in a lot of things and like have to get it exported, I guess, like down below.
Right, and we're still not really sure. I think I saw at one point they saw but look like watering cans or like cards that look like you would see in a self-defense corporate class. Just weird little things that don't make too much sense independently. But now we know they're apparently
Right.
going down there, right? We obviously care about what this exports hall is, and it's been a mysterious thing that's been brought up a couple of times now. So it's clearly implied she knows where it is and that now she can take Irving, right? And then, it kind of
Right.
cuts out from that. And at that point, we don't really see Irving for the rest of the episode. And we go to Mark and Helly, you know, basically taking a stroll down the hall. Uh, they're trying to find the goat people, actually, they found in season one, the goat department. They don't really know anything.
Yeah, the baby goats.
They
Yeah.
don't really know anything about it. They just saw some guy giving some goats little milk out of a bottle. Anyways, they go back there, they manage to find it, and they go through the little corridor, little goat poop on the side and stuff. And they yeah,
I gotta add though, that whole sequence was like straight up out of like Alice in Wonderland or Willy Wonka, where like they have to like go down like they open like a little door. It's small and they have to like kind of like go in and get smaller. And just the
I
visual,
also
but all
heard
yeah,
being John Malkovich.
being John Malkovich, yeah. And then it just like plays to the fact that hey, like you're not in like the regular reality, and like you want to see how deep the rabbit hole goes, or in this case, how deep the corridor the goats
Yeah,
go down. So yeah, it's a really cool visual that they did with that.
absolutely. And then we come upon one of the more striking scenes down on the severed floor. Everything so far has been, very much Apple Apple
Yeah,
stored to the
stark
extreme,
white.
dark
Yeah,
white, a few
yeah,
off, very technological, futuristic.
or cool blue. Yeah,
This is a big meadow, like a big grassy meadow
oh,
with a bunch of goats. And
it looks like real grass they put in there
I'm
too.
pretty
It's kind
sure
of
it's
cool.
real grass, otherwise how would the goats be eating it, right?
I don't know how it gets watered though. Like, there's no like watering
Oh,
system. They
sprinklers,
like
I'm sure.
replace the
I'm sure there's
grass.
sprinklers or
Yeah,
something. Yeah,
probably.
I mean, they
Yeah,
if they can figure that out, I mean, they got goats growing down there. Obviously, the goats need to eat something. Uh,
right.
at this point, it's a very unsettling scene too because we see some with the goats are
Yeah,
actually people in
yeah.
goat
One guy's in a
costumes.
goat costume.
Yeah.
Some scary movie stuff right there.
So they go on, and then we see Brienne of Tarth, Gwendolyn Christie.
Yeah.
She,
Where's the big woman?
yeah, the big woman. I think her name is Lauren in the show. Don't quote me on that though.
Yeah, Lauren.
Lauren, there we go. So Lauren. So
Mm,
they
mm.
basically say, "Hey, we're looking for Miss Casey. We're here." And it turns out they're a department called Mammalian Nurturing, I believe they called it. New department. They just,
This where it got interesting.
they
Yeah,
raise goats,
yeah,
and then they keep kind of asking, like, "Hey, no, we like." She kind of gives away with her eyes that she knows who Miss Casey is, even though she says she doesn't. And then so they keep insisting, and at that point she gets mad and starts ringing her bell, and then it's like something out of a Stephen King movie, right? Like in a Stephen King
yeah,
novel. Like the goat people all come out of the hills. It looks very
yeah.
cultish, like exactly the kind of bad, it's scary. We haven't really seen too much horror in this show so far, but there's a very unsettling scene, right? Even though they're supposedly all co-workers and it looks like a nice meadow before, the mood changes very quickly. At that point, Helly, kind of takes charge and shows everyone, "Hey, look, we're just looking for Miss Casey. We just care about her too." They kind of convince them that she's like one of the goats that they've lost, and that they're just trying to take care of their people like they take care of their goats, and that seems to soften them a bit. And then,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
no, she was. Yeah, I was just saying the way she was able just to like diffuse the situation. I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to get too ahead, but like definitely had me like side eyeing Ellie because I don't know, just because the whole show is based upon like who's in who's an outie, like what's going on, what's this. We definitely
We'll,
have like a
but
whole thing going on with
we'll
Helly.
discuss that in a second because we could get into a whole
Yeah,
mess with that. But anyways, so yeah, at that point they kind of tell her Miss Casey's come a few times. Um, Mark and Helly kind of have a will they or won't they moment in the corridor when they're laughing and stuff and kind of freaking out, where they look like they might kiss, but they don't. A little bit
it
awkward.
was a cool shot where like even before he did that, remember when like he kind of stopped and like the camera was kind of like I don't know how do I put it, like it was kind of like in the almost in the third person. And again, like I remember, like was that? season one, like though that some guy was like creeping on him,
Mhm.
and like it kind of sort of like reminded me. I don't know if it was just to say that the guy was there, but like it definitely like the camera choices show like, hey, like Mark's gonna be always like nervous and looking over his shoulder, like literally and like, kind of also figuratively, um, in these like tender moments he has.
Yeah, no,
I thought that was a really
definitely
good
they're used
choice
to
to use.
being watched. They're used to not having
Yeah,
a true privacy in any ways. Okay.
yeah,
So, anyways, we finished with Mark and Helly at this point. Now we get one of the more interesting scenes of the season. Dylan had refused to go and refused to help search for Miss Casey. He kept saying he needed to get to work. And it's because, if we remember from episode one, basically Mr. Milkshake promised him that he'd get to see his family. He'd get a little room to see his family. And
they didn't get much time last
that's what
time.
happens. He goes and he gets to meet his wife. There's a brief moment where, I mean, at least I was, and I think most viewers were obviously cautious, like, oh, is this actually his wife? Do we know? It's notable that they don't show his kid, who he's the only one he's seen, so it could be just a different Lumen employee pretending. But it fairly quickly becomes obvious that it is his wife. They have some like tender, funny moments. Turns out Dylan's Audi is kind of a loser, that's why he's working at Lumen. He couldn't really find any other jobs, and she still his wife still seems to love him, but she still also seems to be slightly disappointed. Maybe potentially setting up a scenario later where she's like, because Dylan's more confident, more brash, a little childlike and innocent, but he's successful at his job. It's a clear difference, right? It almost feels like, okay, maybe this is like a fresher Dylan before the burdens of living and children and the stresses of all that wore him down. Maybe it's a more focused and centered Dylan. We don't quite know, but it at least sets up the possibility that it'll be, a will they or won't they between him and Dylan Dylan's Audi and Dylan's innie for his wife. And it sets up a situation where now Dylan doesn't want to rock the boat, or any Dylan doesn't want to rock the boat, doesn't want to mess around, doesn't want to piss off Lumen, because now he's seeing his wife. Now he's seeing his family. And he knows if he behaves, he'll keep getting these visitations and setting up basically a scenario where he can betray the rest of his coworkers who he's known his whole life, right? For the possibility of
Right,
seeing his kids, his wife, and I mean, you kind of understand it, right? It's He's never really experienced anything like that. He got hugged. He feels special. He feels loved for the first time in his life. They're setting up. Obviously, they're trying to divide and conquer, right? Trying to give them different reasons to turn on each other instead of openly controlling them like they did in season one. Trying different manipulation tactics, basically, the Lumen board. Now, at this point, we get to. I'm glad you watched this episode, Kosi, because love to hear some of your takes on this scene. The scene where Mr. Milkshake gets his present for his promotion, with the paintings. So we're walking into the scene, and again, really love you hear your takes on this. Where Mr. Milkshake gets rewarded for his promotion by being given pictures by the board of basically Kier, the original Kier,
mm,
just race
yeah,
swapped.
yep.
Race swap. So
It looks like
Kosi,
him a
take it
little
away,
bit.
man, because definitely gotta get a black man's perspective on this.
Well, it's it's funny you said that, because the first thing I thought was, oh, it feels as though they're trying to get with the times and update their look. Reminded me a lot about how companies would try to just uh, almost, this whole DEI whole thing in our
The whole
government
woke.
yeah, it's become like a whole like lightning rod of people's different opinions. So it definitely felt like this company's trying to take that route. But I see it also as that they definitely see promise in Mr. Milkshake. He's someone that they definitely think is like could be a huge asset. But I also like the fact that he knows this, that what he's aware of what he can do, but he's also very cognizant of that this looks weird. So like I would have also thought like, all right, this is cool. I like how you guys think of me in this way, but or that I can rise to this way. But this is done in a really it seemed pretty. performative almost and kind of weird. Hence why I liked how later on he took that same picture and put it up in like somewhere else to in a way to be in a way to be to say, hey, I'll accept this, but I'm keeping an eye on this, and it definitely reflects just uh, my life and just other minority people's lives where we kind of accept these almost like I wouldn't call what they did a microaggression, but it almost seems as though they're pandering and trying to like make it seem as though, oh, you're a good one, you can join our ranks, and like, look, you can be here too. So those definite weird vibes to it, and definitely a painting that's done in your likeness is a bit weird. But yeah, it was definitely jarring, to say the least, in that regard.
No, it definitely reminded me. No, great take by the way, because I really appreciated hearing
Yeah,
that. But definitely reminded me, of when companies are like, "Oh, hey, we're gonna be," especially movies, right? "Oh, we're gonna be diverse. Oh, hey, we're gonna race swap someone in 17th century England to be a black man, but like a regular homeowner. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Or like Black Little Mermaid, or just these moves that are like, hey, look how woke and how diverse we are and how much we support black people.
See, you can be
But
here
then
too. Look, yeah.
yeah, but they don't actually, do anything, right? Like we don't, it's not like they suddenly put a black person in charge of Disney. It's not like we're suddenly getting more movies in this vein. It's just like, oh, hey, here's this little token of,
It's
of
much easier to paint a
appreciation, I guess.
Yeah, it's much easier to paint a picture like that. Like that was easier for Lumen and them to all do instead of making actual change that'll be effective for them and for Mr. Milkshake. It seemed very performative.
Yeah, and then one last thing, I just want to highlight the acting between him and Natalie, because Natalie's
Oh,
also
I
black,
I
right? And she also got
I
a
also have some thoughts
similar
on her
set of
too.
paintings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Now go ahead, take it away, cause
yeah. That entire scene, it definitely reminded me of Get Out and Lord Lumen. We're not
yes,
sure. Yeah, we're not sure.
yes.
Yeah, we're not sure what Lumen's doing. There are a lot of theories, but like it definitely felt in that whole scene. There's a scene in the first Get Out where Daniel Kaluuya, he's sitting with the maid who this is a
Mhm.
8-year-old movie, and it's revealed the maid has her head the inside of her is the brain of the matriarch of the family, and she's being piloted. So she was able to kind of to break out for a second. There was one instance where between her and Milkshake, an amazing scene, by the way, there's one instance where
Yes.
he's looking he's off in one part of the room, and the camera follows her, and the actress it's an incredible job. She's locked in on Milkshake, just eyes don't she doesn't even blink, and she looks, and then I forgot what question he asked, but her reaction where she said congratulations or congratulating him, and just the smile, and it felt almost painful, and it definitely felt as though she's like, oh no, I see another one. I see like someone that could possibly be captured and put into this horrible machine that I'm part of that I can't get out of. It definitely felt as I definitely got vibes of that scene in particular. And again, just props to the actress in that scene. Props to both of them, but for her, it was
Absolutely,
haunting
absolutely. And
performance.
again, since this is always, for first and foremost, a show about corporate culture, corporate parody, just the fact that yeah, black people can climb to a certain level, or minorities can climb to a certain level, but they don't get to really be in charge. They don't really get the true power. They still have to, they might get paid well, they might get sat at a nice desk, but they don't get the full authority and the full respect their other peers get.
There's still a black person in that position at the end of the day. That's what it is. Like, okay, you can rise up, but you're
Yeah,
still just know where you can go or know how high you can get in a sense.
right. Okay, so to keep this going a little bit, at this point we see Miss Cobell. She had refused the offer from the board basically for the new employment. Seemed like she was leaving town, like she was packing up and leaving. Right before she leaves, she kind of looks down and looks at the breathing tube she had taken at the end of season one. At this point, it seems clear that it's a breathing tube for her mother, or at least a very
Yes,
close relative,
yes, it was her
born in
mother's.
1944. Yeah, it
I believe
seems to
I,
be
I
her
believe it's
mother's.
her
I don't
mother.
think they've
Yeah, I believe it's
haven't
her
been
mother.
confirmed. But
Right.
yeah, it seems to be what's heavily implied. And so between that and her interest in Mark and Miss Casey's relationship, it seems at least somewhat clear to me that there's some part of her that believes Lumen's work can maybe bring her mom back, maybe
Definitely,
bring
she
back
thinks
somebody she cares about.
she definitely
It
wants to
seems
use
like
that.
that's it seems like that's the implication.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, so she goes back, talks to Elena. They have a conversation, and right before she's about to go in the building, she kind of looks at the driver or the security guard funny, and then
Oh
just
yeah, as
peels
if she
off.
like
Just
I
she
I think she
she's
knew him.
scared,
I think
basically.
she like knew him or seen him before. It definitely felt like in that scene where like in movies where the main character says, "Oh, they're behind me, aren't they?" Or in that kind of way. It's kind of almost felt comedic,
It did feel like that.
little
And then
comedic.
she peels off because she acts so. Patricia Arquette does such a great job with Miss
Oh yeah,
Cordell. Just a unhinged performance the whole time. Very cold, very cultishly devoted, but also just very crazy and over the top. Love her performance in this show.
oh
But yeah,
yeah,
we don't really get a clear idea of what it was. You might have just got a bad feeling, like when you're about to get popped in a gangster movie, and you
yeah.
decide to just take off.
It's that scene in
But that's
Goodfellas. That's literally what I was thinking
yes,
of. Yeah,
yes, exactly. There's a great example. So at this point, we get to the biggest scene of, frankly, not just this episode, but the whole season, maybe the whole show. It turns out the title of the episode and what Mark was doing at the beginning of the episode. This is a stupid idea, by the way. He was trying to burn into his retinas the message, "Who is alive?" Right? That's the title of the episode. Basically, looking at a UV light to burn the message into his retinas. If you ever just looked at something in a really bright light, you can kind of burn it into your eyes for a second. You blink a while and you still see
see
the
blotches.
image
Yeah,
in your eye. Yeah,
yeah.
you see the blotches. But doing that with a UV light for enough time to be able to, I think he timed it where it was like 2 minutes to get to the door. I can't stress enough, he was gonna go blind if he kept working on that. He was absolutely gonna blind himself. At that point, before he finishes doing that, Rigabi comes out, the person who reintegrated PD, who killed the security guard in season one when
Man,
they
she
were
scared me
interrupted the
when
first
he was in
time.
the car and she just showed up. That was
Scared the shit out of me too.
that was really good. That was a really good jump scare.
Very, very mysterious figure. We know
Yeah.
nothing about her basically so far, other than she's heavily involved in the severance procedure, actually put Mark's chip inside him. Anyways, at that point, she offers to reintegrate him if he really wants to find out, and she confirms for him that as far as she knows, his wife is alive. Which to us, we have already it's already been established several times, so
Right.
it's not as big a reveal. But
But now he
obviously, to
knows. Yeah.
Mark, that's
Yeah.
massive,
It's a
right?
big
He already
deal.
has his suspicions, frankly, because of the sister, because of the innie shouting she's alive.
Hmm.
But now he gets full confirmation and he says immediately, "Yes, I want to see my wife. I want to do this. Go." Now, again, this I honestly feel is one of the this is a breathtaking bit of television, right? Cinematography wise, the music, the way it plays out, the suspense that builds up, the
Oh
way
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
basically Mark's reintegration scene, right? We go in, and one of those things that you have to see is almost impossible to describe.
It's there was I think in there was a definite shot where like when it was happening. I'm not sure if they built this, but they built a whole desk where he's on and like and they'll film him in one room and then film it again in the other room, but have it switch back and forth in between and seamlessly in a way to kind of almost like disorient you, but kind of give you the feeling of coming back and going back and forth in between like two people, which is essentially what was happening. Just again, brilliant the way they did that.
Brilliant work by everyone involved. Just the way the music starts playing up, the way we start seeing scenes from what we know has to be Mark's first moment of life, which calls back the first moment of the first season, right? The opening of season
Yep.
one. So the opening of the whole show, obviously. So call back to that. We see him, flipping back and forth between the desk where he's at and the desk down in the lumen floor. His clothes flip back and forth. The everything we see the brain waves start to mash together in certain shapes, some of which we seem similar to stuff we've seen before. Just breathtaking work. The music starts exploding, and the last thing we see is PD asking, "Who are you?" Which is, of course, one of the most topical, major questions
For
thematically
sure.
of the entire
Yeah.
show. And that's where we end. And I can't stress enough. That's one of my favorite scenes of the year. I mean, year's short, right?
I just
One of my favorite
you
scenes of the
started.
past
Yeah.
few years, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that, one of my favorite TV scenes I think I've ever seen. It's just breathtaking how well it's put together, how well it shows that transition, how well it takes you into the chaos that must be putting two minds together that really don't entirely match up. They don't chronographically match up. He's now trying to get the memories for stuff that happened technically years ago. It's a mess. And that's where the episode ends.